As we reported earlier, protests in the wake of the Tony Robinson decision did end in some people being arrested yesterday.
And joining us to talk about how Madison police have been working with the community rally organizers is Chief Mike Koval. Welcome back to the show, Chief.
Again. Thank you.
All right, so to start off, how did you prepare with the leaders for these protests?
Well, we've been meeting in conjunction with the Ferguson aftermath for a number of months, and then that tenor and time took an increased sense of urgency after the Tony Robinson death on March 6th. So we're dealing with a lot of folks who are representing a lot of constituencies out there, everyone from the Greater Urban League of Madison, NAACP, 100 Black Men, Boys and Girls Club, Centro Hispano. And so with that sort of across the aisle sort of bipartisan, all one community, one collaboration sort of initiative, that kind of dialogue has been extremely productive in terms of getting to know one another first so that we can build that trust, and then also to what will the template look like for Madison as it differed from the things that we saw happening elsewhere. And I would say that but for those initiatives, I can't speak with the same kind of confidence that I have today.
You're going to be there. The internal investigation into Officer Kenny continues. You're going to be asked to review its findings.
Exactly.
Some of the protesters yesterday spoke about asking you to recuse yourself from that. I'd like your thoughts on that.
Well, that's an internal dynamic which only goes to the unique policies, procedures, and training protocols of the MPD. So frankly, I think I'm in a better position from a subject matter expert standpoint to be all the more vigilant and critical of those findings. So that won't be happening.
So what are some of the next steps that you feel that your department is going to take in light of what DA Ishmael Ozan has now said?
Well, again, I think it goes to listening to the community sentiments to some extent, while also looking at the templates that's been laid out for us by the Obama Commission on 21st Century Policing. I think there's a lot of actionable things that have come out of that, and of course we're going to embrace that and see where we can do better as well.
Our colleague Susan Simon asked you about this right after the Tony Robinson shooting in March, about this idea of officers waiting for backup. In this particular case, the video, you see Officer Kenny. What are the challenges associated with requiring an officer to wait for backup before they go into a situation?
Well, in an instance like a lot of these things is that if you wait, and you wait as an administrative matter for that second person, I don't dispute the fact that perhaps that could ultimately deter or provide another supplement to avoiding deadly force. But on the other hand, if it's your friend or family or loved one who's on the other side of that door and you think that their life is in imminent peril, I would think that we would all want that officer to do due diligence in getting through and trying to render aid. So I think that we can't be so over dramatic about what steps we take that we're not being more analytical about it as well.
Do you have specifics that you've taken away from this that you say we can get better A, B, C?
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we have to continue to do is look at what is the response. There could be some instances where we require or compel a second officer, but I'd like to see what the metrics look on that. We looked at 2 officer calls back in 2007, so all of those things will be re-examined through a new set of lenses.
Emotions are obviously still running pretty darn high,
right.
And we reported that your department has received threats against your police officers. How do you handle stuff like this? I mean, it's not the first time that you've received threats, but especially with this situation, you know, the heat's still going on in the kitchen here.
It is, but I also think that you have to temper that, because anytime there's sort of those benchwater days where there's a notoriety to it because of a big decision or a certain event that's going on in your community, you process those things, you take them seriously, you vet them, but on the other hand, you don't have it inure to the way you work. We don't want our officers going out in the community with sort of this bunker mindset mentality where it's we versus them, and oh, but only a cop can appreciate and explain what a cop goes through. That's sort of, with all due respect, that's a cop out. Our officers are very relational. They're very environmentally aware of what's going on. We ask them to use good safety issues, but we're not going to, you know, use the hyperbole of all these threats to paralyze our response.
All right. Police Chief Mike Koval, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks
sir.
a lot, you
we
guys.
Appreciate it.